This is From Hero to Zero, a show about the misconception of the demise of the music industry. We talk to heroes to make sense of the alleged zero, the music business. Hi Justin, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks, Sebastian. Sorry, it's Bonnie, not into the microphone, please.
Hi Bonnie.
Unprofessional. She doesn't like handshakes.
She doesn't? Ah, well.
She likes everything to be written down in a contract.
Oh, you know. Very smart dog.
Handshake isn't worth the paper it's written on.
Of course, we understand. So, Justin, The Darkness released 4 albums. 2 albums, what I like to call the first era of The Darkness, were with a major record company. That was until 2006, then the band went on a hiatus, and then you guys came back with 2 more albums in 2011, 12, plus minus,
yep.
With your own record company, Canary Dwarf Records.
Kinda.
Kind of.
Canary Dwarf Records isn't like a record company where you don't have a receptionist and a big lavish lobby,
okay.
And you don't have gold discs on the wall, and you don't have people working there. Well, you don't have premises, and you don't have, how can I put it? It's more like an exercise, really. I mean, everything that we've done since the end of the hiatus has been administered by other companies. So the Hotcakes, the first album that we did, was administered by PIAS.
Okay.
And then the second one, Last of Our Kind, is in partnership with Cobalt Label Services. Mm-hmm. Who have sort of, they outsource marketing teams, and you decide together how the marketing spend is to be attributed. It's much more like a partnership than a traditional label setup. But I mean, the reason why we have Canary Dwarf is it owns the copyrights, but it's licensed. We license it to the companies like PIAS and Cobalt to administer them and collect all the money for us, because they know how to do it and they have those relationships, and they're used to structuring campaigns that suits a band like The Darkness. You know.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Why did you decide to go, if we might call it, independent? Instead of signing again with a major record company?
Frankly, back in the early days, I really wanted to do independent in the first place. Like the first few singles that we did were with Must Destroy Records, who I think were distributed by PIAS as well, mm-hmm. Or I think it was called Vital at the time.
Okay.
So we were much more in control of our destiny at that point. And we only signed to Atlantic after we'd not just recorded the album, but also established the track listing and the artwork and everything. And they came in quite late in the campaign, really. In fact, the first single they did was, I think it was I Believe in a Thing Called Love might have been the first single. So everything leading up to I Believe in a Thing Called Love, which made it such a hit, mm-hmm. You know, all the groundwork that we'd done was independently structured.
Okay. And
I mean, we wanted to have, the reason why we wanted to do the major label setup in the first place was because it's much easier to structure an international campaign with one umbrella organisation that has a presence in all the important territories that you want to visit and you want to have an impact in. So
you said that back then it was easier, of course, to structure an international campaign.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I mean, that was 2002, 2003, something like that.
That was 2003, yeah.
3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So social media wasn't that far ahead yet. So do you think today would be easier to do it than back in the days, even if you're an independent record label? Or
I don't know, because I don't know if it would be any easier, because you know how Netflix, for example, doesn't have a presence in China. The Netflix, you know, when you join Netflix and you visit, like say you're an Englishman and you've got all those films available to you. I know this from my own experience. You then go to South America and you can only get the Pink Panther, you know. because they've only got licenses for certain territories. So I do think it's still just as difficult, and I actually think the only way to do it with any degree of success is to do the major label route. If you want to be big all around the world, you know. When you get to this point in your career, like 5 albums, next one will be the 5th album, you know pretty much geographically where your audience lies and where it's going to be worthwhile, and where it's going to be a waste of time. You know?
Sure.
But I think in the early days we just wanted to hit everything and see what happened. You know, it's a bit like when Starsky and Hutch is cooking spaghetti and they throw it against the wall. On some surfaces, say tiles, plaster, the spaghetti sticks, and you know it's done. Naked brickwork and certain other kinds of rendering, and certainly wallpaper, the spaghetti falls to the ground. That's what it's like when you release an album internationally.
Interesting point. And markets, actually I watched an interview with MB, where you said that Canada and Australia are amongst your strongest markets, even though you don't get to tour them as much as you would like to, or you can.
I think in some places, like Australia, for example, we won an MTV award in 2006. Most people consider The Darkness to be a sort of one-hit wonder thing, but we had a lot of top 10 hits, and we were still winning things like MTV awards in the later part of the first era. But in countries like Australia, that we've only been to 3 times. So maybe it's a case of absence makes the heart grow fonder, or more likely it's because, you know, we do a certain type of music that connects with a certain type of audience, and there's more of that kind of person in Australia, for whatever reason. I think Canada's very good to us as well. Like the best shows we've ever done probably have been in Vancouver. We've got a lot of friends in Toronto, and whenever we play there, there's just genuine excitement in the room, and you can feel it. And that's, you know, inexplicable, aside from the fact that my brother and I are sort of part French-Canadian. So
okay.
Who knows, maybe it's that. Maybe they can see it, hear it in the music.
A holistic fan experience, that's what I see when I follow you guys on any kind of media, basically. For instance, you used PledgeMusic not to raise money for your album.
Yeah, the album's already made at the point that
exactly.
Pledge came on board.
But you still went to PledgeMusic. Can you, what was the thought process that led to that?
Well, because there's 2 reasons actually. One of them's quite a cynical reason, another one is quite important. The cynical reason would be because all the pre-sales and the experiences and the things and the bundles that you sell to your audience before the release date count towards your numbers in the first week of release. So it can make a more impactful, as they say in America, chart position. And it can lead to the perception that your album is more successful than it really is. But we didn't want to use it in that way. I think we could have gone in harder and had a much longer pre-roll to achieve something like that. But when you listen to the charts, it's quite obvious that it's not something that we want to do particularly anyway. We don't want to be amongst those lot.
Get it?
But what we really wanted to do was have the existing fan base. We wanted to harvest a sense of ownership in what we do, and that meant giving them something more than we have before. An opportunity to buy a guitar for less than you would buy it new, and it's played by us, for example. And I can't remember the other stuff that we did, but it was always things that we thought would be appreciated by a hardcore follower as opposed to somebody who might be a transient sort of passing trade kind of enthusiast, or a generic music person wouldn't be interested in the things that we were trying to give away, or the experiences that we wanted to offer. It was really just so that our fans felt even more strongly about us, because I think we are a band that polarizes people. We want to be anyway. We don't want people to think that we're okay. We want people to love us or hate us, really. So the ones that love us, the Pledge campaign suits them, really.
And another thing which I saw was that you work with allaboutlife.com, where people can buy a USB stick with the concert which you played on that evening, for instance.
Yeah.
So basically, you record every single concert which you play?
Yes, and as opposed to every other live album that's released by any other band in the world ever, it hasn't been modified post-show to iron out imperfections. There's some great live albums out there, but they're not live albums. They're doctored in studios, and in some cases every single part is replayed and re-recorded to the point where the artist is satisfied that they're not embarrassed by any what we call clam notes. But for me, I'm a person that believes that the mistakes are what makes live albums more fun to listen to. So you get a genuine warts and all digital recording of the performance, because the magic of a performance is when something goes wrong, and then it's how you deal with it. It's how you step up. That's the narrative of the show. It's not the set list played to perfection. It's actually the things that happen and how we cope. And I think we're particularly good at that, so it's nice to leave those things in, I think. So we're not afraid, we're not afraid of the potential scrutiny that a recording like that will be subjected to, because you can scrutinise something all you want. If it comes from the heart, then there's not much you can say about it, is there?
In today's technological world, technology enables consumers to buy one single song, to stream one single song. Do you consider that when you produce music at all, like an album, or do you think in the in the album ideology way?
We're an albums band, and we always have been. We always will be. I like the idea of sort of drip feeding content to people, but I much prefer the idea of creating art, in chunks that are sizable and more challenging. And I don't care if people's attention spans have reduced. That's their problem. Our duty is to submit work that we think is worthwhile. And not many bands do that.
Very well said. Video killed the radio star. Internet killed the video star. Now, did music streaming kill the music star in general?
What makes me laugh about music streaming is that it's chart eligible. I mean, they're always trying to, because sales are so compromised by everything else that's happening in the world. You can't base charts on that anymore. So for a while there, they said, okay, well, let's include radio play. And that's really unfair, because you've got sales, which is what the public actually consume, and then you've got radio play, which is what the head of programming in a certain station decides he wants his listenership to hear. So first of all, that's unfair. Then it was things like, I heard a rumour that when we did our Christmas song in 2003, we came in at number 2. We narrowly missed out on the number 1 slot. But I heard a rumour that the song that was number 1 was partly due to the fact that sales of the film that the song was in on DVD were also chart eligible, which I don't think anybody in the world can keep a straight face and say, well, that's fair enough, because that's unfair. So you've got things like, if it appears on a soundtrack in a DVD, it's chart eligible. If it's played on the radio, it's chart eligible. Streaming is chart eligible. And I know for a fact, because I've done it myself, you go to Spotify and you just press play. There's no conscious decision to select necessarily the thing that you're doing. It's just to provide some soundtrack in the background, just in the same way that in the 1950s, a housewife with a marigolds on doing a washing up would have the radio on or the wireless on, listening to whatever's on there. And it's just background noise. So I don't think it's acceptable to have background noise contributing to the charts, because it's it makes a mockery of the entire system. I'd rather not have charts, to be honest. It's things like Sam Smith get stuck in the charts because it's just on repeat. You put it on repeat, you go to sleep. Every time it goes round, it counts as a chart, eligible, play, or a stream. And there are people in comas that listen to Sam Smith, and that's chart eligible. You know, I just don't think that's right. You know, you have to make a conscious decision to go to a shop, pay your money, and buy a record. And that used to be it. How I long for the olden days when things mattered. You know, they don't anymore. That's the sad truth.
That's true. Well, Justin, thank you very, very much. It was very interesting.
Thanks.
All the best for the future. And
Thank you.
bye, Bonnie. And hopefully we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sebastian. Cheers.